the motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Can I get a second? All in favor? All opposed? Can I get approval of the minutes from Wednesday, June 10th, 2026? Does anyone have any changes or comments?
Move we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Agenda item number 4, case PC-7-8-26-10, 10009 Old Ocean City Boulevard, Heron Park Development, final site plan review. You guys can come up and introduce yourselves and walk us through everything.
For the record, Mark Spencer Crawford, 6200 Coastal Highway, Suite 200, Ocean City, Maryland. I'm the attorney for Coastal Rental Properties.
Rock Parker, Parker and Associates, 528 Riverside Drive, Salisbury, Maryland, surveyor, engineer. for the project.
Gary Rosenthal, Solutions ITEM, 303 North Bedford Street, Georgetown, Delaware. I'm the architect of record.
Palmer Gillis with Coastal Ventures.
Sandy Gillis, Social Ventures.
You want to take it back to this one here, final site plan approval, obviously you have, some renderings which we will have the architect go through in a minute. This plan is very similar to what you've already seen. I'm gonna have, Mr. Parker start and just describe what we're here for. Supervision.
I think it's probably easiest or probably best just to kind of go through what's changed since the last time we've seen it. We've seen it a couple times, I don't want to belabor the whole presentation here. But basically behind the building number 2, I believe Chanel was mentioning the handicap spaces and the island. So that's reflected here. You'll see we did put a landscaped island between those 2 rows of parking spaces that gave us some room in the parking area. It gave us 2 striped access ways to the loading zones, which are along the railroad tracks. And the question there is how we get dollies and whatnot for buildings. So those 2 striped loading areas will provide access from the loading zones to the buildings themselves. We've gotten the subdivision plat from DDF. We've imported that into our drawings. Everything matches up just perfectly. It was really heavy, not much has changed since that. The forest conservation area is shown there. We've also received some comments. We've submitted to sediment control. We've gotten comments from them. We've revised our drawings and resubmitted to them for approval. Really just minor notes type stuff. Sharon has, or the town has given us some comments on this plan. We have complied with each and every one of those comments without exception. I really wanted to come here today and say I had those plans resubmitted, but I've got one comment left to address, and I've got to feed in the covenants number, the covenants restrictions for the property. I just didn't have that at my fingertips. So I can fully attest that all of the comments provided by the town, I believe it was last Thursday, have been implemented or will be implemented without exception, without complaint on the wire drawings. I have a full set of construction drawings. The project is fully designed, 100% engineered. It is basically what we're looking at before us today.
Architectural, the big comments last time were the type of material that was being used, some consistency through all the window systems, and the past perspective that was shown was from overhead and could not really depict what materials were being used and how they were going about it. In your packet, you'll see that there's 3 different renditions of the elevations. One is brick going all the way down to grade. The second is the brick with the interruption of a siltstone, precast siltstone that is running around. And then the third one, which is our preference, is siltstone and then a base of split-face block to act as a water table. And that is what these renderings are depicting right now. I'm sorry. Here you can see a little bit of the look and feel of what we're trying to do. Brick is
Give a sample.
There's a sample on the board of the brick, and there's a sample of the precast, siltstone. That's gonna be running around so you can see. We're trying to, bring in the colors of downtown, Berlin. And rather than just have a flat, facade, we tried to do some undulation, ins and outs of the brick. As you can see, gives a little bit more depth, and, the shadow lines create a really nice relief of the building. One of the other comments last time was about a couple of different canopies. So as you can see, other than the main entrance canopy, we're trying to stay consistent with the canopy look. And all the window systems are now a black window system all throughout to go along with the black canopy systems. So here you can see two renderings of medical office building, which is building number 2.
And this is option 3, correct?
This is option number 3.
Okay.
Yes, this is with the siltstone, point it out a little bit better, with the siltstone that's running around, and then the split face block at the base, and then it's the other brick is running consistent all the way through. And then for the retail, again, you can see same window systems that are running through, a lot of the same accent soldier course brick, the ins and outs of recessed, and then the brick facades running through. That was the biggest comments from last time. And then they asked, can we please bring in a sample? So as you can see, we do have a sample on the table of the brick and the siltstone.
You want me to pass this up to the table or hold it up?
That's fine.
It's good. And you'll appreciate the color of this. It's called Riesling. It's California, though. Maybe it's Argentina. I don't know. So this is flavor number 3 on the elevations. We just wanted to get you all's input on the different versions that we have, which is, we have 3 different versions that we repeat what Gary said. One's all brick with a water table stone, and the other's brick with a water table and the cast stone underneath of the water table.
And 3 is your preferred choice.
We prefer 3, yes, but
Rather than what's the aftermarket.
that's what's being shown up here.
Yeah.
Looks great, like the variations on the wall.
Yeah, the reveals that he has there on the corners and things like that look fantastic.
Yeah.
They look nice. And we have the, you had asked about the metal, I'm sorry, I'm gonna. There's some metal difference in there. Our preference is the matte black. There's a glossy block, but we think that would push off a reflection. So we're thinking that this will be a little bit less invasive, if you will. That's a word. In that context. So we're open for questions, and if you have any strong feelings about either one of versions 1 or 2, or this being presented as number 3.
I have a question over this part.
Yeah.
The design looks great. Thank you for the attention to detail that you got. The comments that you said you addressed for the town, all the comments, were they the ones that we've got Town of Berlin Plan Review, Project Review comments in our package? And it contains several project comments, and then we also have, utility plan review with comments. When you say you've addressed all comments, have you already addressed everything that's on your
Yes.
schedule?
And the comments have been implemented in our drawings, our drawings are ready to go, hands down, we've addressed each one.
With the exception of one item you.
Just adding in that one number of the top.
So you don't expect that there's anything else in terms of plan approval or review that you're gonna have to meet for this?
I do not foresee any substantial changes coming from what we're looking at.
Good, thank you.
So, Mr. Carver, you were in here last for a preliminary site plan review?
And tonight, the final site plan.
That's correct. Did you meet everything in the motions that were brought up in the preliminary site
My
plan?
knowledge, yes.
So-
I'm basing that upon what Mr. Parker and the rest of the team have indicated.
Does staff have any comments?
It's just recommending that you incorporate the owner's consent requirements, which it sounds like they've been met, but they should just be, before the zoning certificate is issued, if those conditions be met. Because it seems that they are now representing that there are additional changes that are not being presented to you today that address those comments, which is just the staff confirming that those comments have been addressed.
Okay, so you're saying a final approval with,
Well, the recommendations with the site plan are conditioned, with the approval of the site, of the actual architecture, and that's up to you all. It's my recommendation, and you make your decision on what you would like there. But the recommendation should incorporate the owner's recommended, which is the town of Berlin, saying everything is signed off on by the appropriate staff people.
Well, I would submit to you that we are the planning commission here, that we are the site plan review commission.
Yeah.
These other things that I see here that you were alluding to are out of our jurisdiction. I mean, he's not gonna get his building permit if they're not met, is that correct?
And some of these are not necessarily from, I let Sharon address that they're not building code requirements, some of it's planning code recommendations.
So the specific list of items, you are correct. The outside agency approvals, which are not under the purview of the town, are a requirement in order for them to move forward to an actual building permit status. For instance, Mr. Parker had referenced the soil conservation district approvals.
We know that we have no say so, we cannot, it's never been, since I've been on this commission, a requirement for final site plan review, from the planning commission. Those, if they have to meet those requirements and those, satisfy those agencies under their jurisdiction, however they require them to do it.
So the concern that staff has is that that's true, that they should address those concerns to staff approval, but, and not necessarily this applicant, but other applicants have said, planning commission said, we approve or recommend, or whatever word we wanna use, and then they don't have to make any additional changes to address the staff concerns. Because you guys have already said it's okay, the way that it's written.
Usually when we approve something, we always say subject to all and any other applicable rules,
Right.
regulations, and requirements of the lot.
Subject to is the word that's used everywhere.
And that'll be part of our approval.
Okay, I just wanna make sure it's clear on the record that
I mean,
there's
I mean,
additional.
That's almost always.
I would think I would think it's just plain common sense to know that this man is gonna do what he needs to do to get his building permit and comply with any kind of agency that he needs to get his building permit. We, no matter what we say here for stormwater, for electric utilities, for soil conservation, we have no jurisdiction over it. We get, it's a moot point that we even address it. We don't need to address it. We gave them preliminary site plan review. They're here for final. If they met what we required in our motions that they come back with on these drawings, then I understand your concerns of what you're saying. But they can't build what they're gonna build if they don't get those, if they don't meet those requirements. And what we say so is not gonna matter either way.
It's provided nothing in the site plans change as a result.
Right, if they change something, then they have to come back to us. Yes, if something gets changed, then they would have to come back to us. But to put that in there now, I mean, if he had no objection to it and you're tickled with it, then I don't care. But it's not gonna make any difference either way if he doesn't meet the requirements of those agencies.
Now, are we proving, there's a phase 1 and phase 2 now?
Building one and building two.
Building
We're
one
on-
and two.
Building one and building two, I think it's marked on one of the drawings, are the two buildings that we're looking for approval on. Building three that was shown up on that site plan, we will be coming back to you on that, and the garden center, we will be coming back.
Right, so you'll be coming back with the.
Correct.
And that's one of the recommendations of the owner.
Well, we're only submitting, phase one, which is building one and two.
Right.
And that's still, like you would still probably just build out the shell of building one.
My instruction to this gentleman to my left is tomorrow to get our structural engineer on at least the shell for building number two, because I have a urgent need for that.
Right,
Pending tonight's-
last time you discussed because you have a tenant for building number two,
Right.
and the way that building one would still just be a shell.
Right on the heels of that, we'll be doing the shell building for building one, so yes.
Brock, I noticed, some of the foundation plantings, it didn't affect my approval or not today, but can we make sure that we are using native species?
Sure.
I think there were two on there that can be invasive if we let them. I appreciate that. And then just out of curiosity, do the catch basins throughout the site, do they all feed to the bioretention area?
The catch basins all feed to the fire retention either the bios themselves or the bio swales by the
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Anybody have a motion?
Is this the intended for like the lands, for the lighting, that style of lighting fixture? I mean, I know you're not gonna be able to do this building one with this patio area. I appreciate the rendering of it. I know you mentioned that.
Right, that's, if you have any comments on that, but, currently that would be our goal, like the picture, if you have something, I know on Berlin.
No,
Okay, all right. I mean, we can come back with another cut sheet or something like that, if you think of something different. I mean, we're really here, like I said, we've presented, these guys have created flavors 1, 2, and 3, so we're open to this. This is our preferred design.
The open space areas or the mood areas, if you will probably have a different lighting style, a lower level, like yellow or light.
Yeah.
Parking will have a little taller pole with an LED, more defined area that goes to where like this a little better. But the design is such that it doesn't cast any glare on the use of property, so it's like, but everything's LED, smart lights.
The building with acorn lenses. The building, wall sconces are all down lights.
Structural.
Yeah.
Wasn't there some movement that we used to follow that had Victorian lighting of a consistent design that?
That's a good question, because on Berlin Main Place, we put light fixtures that were subject to what the town's, style was.
Right.
So on the pole, on the post, I'm not trying to create an issue for myself here, but that was what we did there. And we're open-minded to change that. But I don't want it to hold up this, we can bring back a fixture sample or something.
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
want.
I mean,
If there's an issue there, we can bring back another,
I mean, it doesn't, unless y'all have a particular problem, I think it's good to have a consistent lighting freestanding pole standard, and we kind of set one. I don't know, we talked about it in recent years. I think they've been used though on several projects. I think they're nice looking lights. The Victorian, the town, I think they have a style that they have. If that works for you, I think.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm okay with that, on the post lights. And then, of course, you see the, wall hung lights,
Yeah, the wall lighting, as long as it's down lit. You know.
Yeah, but the posts, you know, the post lights.
Anything on a post.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we did that at Berlin Main Place, I think you guys asked us to do that.
Here you can see the wall lighting.
They're very subtle.
Sorry.
Have you ordered them over there? So you're referring to, yeah, you're referring to those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks like you might have done it there, actually, while I'm looking at it. So,
I don't think that's exactly like what you all have as a, not necessarily exact standard, but a standard.
If you get us the
I think we kind of have the specs on
Yeah.
it.
yeah, the light specs, we'll definitely make sure that those are.
Right.
The electric department or somebody, I think, knows about that.
I can't remember.
I can't either.
You wanna put it in your motion to approve?
I mean, you know,
How strong are you guys on that? Because I feel like it gets a little bit decadent to repeat that all over town in an area that.
That's legitimate, I just raised the issue, so I mean,
Yeah.
I'll have a problem with that. We bring back a cut sheet or send one to Ryan if you like or whatever.
Yeah.
I'll just state that. I don't think it really matters. I think it would be overdoing it to do it on a piece of property like this that's attached to the downtown. That's my stance on it. I prefer consistency with the building and the lighting and,
Right.
you know, you got black awning and black storefronts and black fixtures that, you know, consistency with that in your landscape.
Yeah, but what kind of light posts you wanna look at?
I mean, something along those styles, but you need to match, you know, I also don't.
I'm not fixated on this, just that style, the Victorian style, or something like that, I think.
Yeah, there's
I think we
something
can keep the
transitional.
intent of that.
Yeah. Because there's an element of the project that's a public, you know, throughway from that street and stuff, and there's going to be lights along that. I can kind of see that in that.
I hope we're not gonna have street lights, little town, sodium lights, I mean, it's like.
Yeah.
You may wanna coordinate your lighting as well with what you're gonna be putting on the city street. You know?
Yeah, that's
Try
right.
to be consistent throughout the project.
you know, whether you want that consistency, you know, again, if everything is black and they're a different style, but we have, you know, something along the street that's different, you know.
Why don't we just do this, why don't we submit some cut sheets at a future date? Because we're not there yet at this point, but we can do that without an issue.
That's fine.
I don't think the town has decided what the lighting fixtures and what
Okay.
kind of access.
So
I don't
then
think
you'll
they're
give us some
at
cut
that
sheets
level
on,
yet.
along the ideas we're discussing.
Right. Well, like I said, we did it at Berlin Main Place, and we did it for all the phases, so it's not, I mean, they are definitely more expensive, but it's not a big issue in the scheme of things.
And if I may say that the overall site lighting plan for the site will have to undergo review, and they can be submitted as part of that
Okay.
review.
Put it that way.
I have a lighting plan done for the project, and this is the head that we've selected.
Okay. That's good. Well, we'll
Looks like
send
you've
you
already
already
done it.
No problem.
My only last clarification was, so whatever you choose for the water table lower a couple feet, you're gonna do the same exact configuration on both buildings?
On 1 and 2.
On one and two?
I can't represent what 3 is gonna look like.
Sure, yeah. No, my comment is just, that's nice consistency.
I like
Buildings
that.
along with a few subtle differences, one
Yep.
building having gable, this other gable, one not. Nice distinction.
Is there any comments from the public? Alright. You guys have any other comments, and we want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve, just for sure everybody's happy, subject to whatever further regulatory review is required, as usual. You had a comment about some non-invasive species that you'll modify on the planning thing.
Coordinating lights with the town access road lights,
Excuse me?
or was it suggesting that the visual of the town access road lighting be coordinated? There are gonna be lights,
Yeah,
Along
you're gonna, the lighting plan, I just saw it,
Yeah.
because we have Victorian heads already, so
Okay.
you can leave the discretion for that final.
Well, when we get the design for the access road, we'll try to make sure we harmonize both.
Yeah.
Second.
When you make the motion, you want to include the exact verbiage from the
Staff
town,
comments.
just to make our life easier.
Contingent upon the applicant addressing all outstanding time department comments to the satisfaction of the town. As you,
And this is for final site plan approval.
yes, for building one to
We call it phase one as opposed to.
phase one.
Did you guys get that, or do you need to reiterate that?
yeah, yes, I mean, I think it would be nice if you could just incorporate whatever is in the owner's recommendations, because it basically is what you're saying. Just that it's to whatever the town requires. And then the circulation issues that were identified in the last staff report are addressed. It sounds like that their representative been addressed.
We've addressed all those comments, but we've made it subject to staff contingency.
Exactly. So basically, whatever's in the owner's, it's easiest to say whatever's in the mayor's letter is also incorporated into whatever motion you're making. That would be my recommendation.
What is the mayor's letter? Just curious.
It's the mayor's consent letter, it's attached to the thing. But basically just saying the staff is satisfied with, that the comments have been addressed. And that any stormwater that's coming off site there's some kind of agreement to that, which is already to be required by stormwater. Which is, again, to your point, is that it will be done because it's required
Well,
by
that's all,
the code section.
that's the contingencies they gotta comply with.
Subject to.
Exactly. It's just more detailed then, in the letter. It's just more detailed about what those conditions are,
Well,
and
but that's part of the ATC review.
You're the mayor, Lou?
I'm not disagreeing with you.
That's a contingency that I think is.
We know we have to get EA Associates approval, we know we have to get Worcester County Soil Conservation. We're almost there on that one. We know we have to get a building permit, we know we have to get the electrical utilities, we know we have to get EVF's access road drawings at some future date. By the way, we do have temporary approval from State Highway Administration to, I think we're gonna be ahead of the town on the access road, so we do have that as an option, just FYI. But we know we have to have all those other agency approvals.
Alright, Keith,
Just so we're not all lost in the verbiage subsequent to my motion, here's my motion. I I move we approve, phase one, buildings 1 and 2, site plan. All contingent upon the applicant addressing all outstanding planning department comments to the satisfaction of the town, inclusive of whatever is included in the mayor's letter, if that's a great concern, but I think it's all covered, so, inclusive of the mayor's letter, which I don't think creates any difference or anything else.
We'll look at it.
I've only seen this mayor's letter tonight, honestly.
Hey, Mark, see it?
Yeah, the letter I believe is being referred to as the letter dated July 2nd. And I'll just, when we read it into the record, with the approval being subject to it, says I, the undersigned, do hereby authorize the applicant, Coastal Venture Properties LLC, and its authorized representatives, Paul Gillis and Mark Cropper, collectively CVP, to present site plan design submitted by CVP on June 5th, 2026, June site plan on behalf of the town of Berlin as owner of the portion of Worcester County Tax Map number 03-014800, the property, to the planning department for the recommendations of the planning commission on the submitted June site plan, with the understanding that the planning department shall not issue a zoning certificate until the following conditions are met. Number 1, the planning director, in consultation with appropriate professionals, confirms that the project is fully designed to town code requirements, including stormwater and setback requirements, appropriately addresses planning consultant Cruz's noted deficiencies, and takes into account the planning commission's recommendations. Number 2, the planning director or the town's planning consultant, in her professional opinion, finds that the pedestrian and traffic design of CVP's project meets planning commission's recommendations for drive, parking, and circulation per town code section 108-274 sub 2, and standard planning standards, including meeting best practices for pedestrian safety and addressing the design elements noted in planning consultant Cruz's notes dated July 2nd, 2026. Number 3, CDP and the town enter into the necessary stormwater agreements. 4, any major changes in site plan design for phase 1, such as changes in location, elevation, design of the buildings, that the planning director in her discretion has determined are material, shall require additional planning commission site plan review and recommendations. And number 5, planning commission is not issuing binding or final recommendations for any improvements or the site plan for phase 2. And the phase 2 design will require additional planning commission site plan review. This consent to present the June site plan to the planning commission is not intended to, nor shall be construed as 1, modify any terms of the LDA, 2, any ongoing consent of the town to applicant filing any future site plans for the property for planning commission consideration, or 3, modify or waive any other town code requirements. Owner acknowledgement and consent, Town of Berlin, signed Zach Tyndall, Mayor, dated July 2nd, 2026.
And I should probably add to the motion, that we are approving option 3 as presented.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
You guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Maybe our 4 inches of rainfall, 4 hours helped the other day.
That is her watering every day.
Thank you all. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll talk to you on
To go through, is there any comments from the public? Name and the street, please.
Ron Humphreys, 9 Gray Street, also project manager, working for Brock. I'm the one that designed everything you guys see before you. As a citizen, I'm kind of confused as to, much like, I keep forgetting.
New.
So, what's that?
New.
New. I completely agree with everything you said. The hoops that have had to have been jumped through to get this through something as simple as planning commission is absolutely insane. You hit it right on the head. Why are so many things being put in place and presented to you guys when it doesn't need to be presented to you guys? It's taken care of in the next step. It just befuddles me. It really does. No other municipality requires full utility drawings, full stormwater management drawings. Once you get the concept of stormwater approved by an alternate engineer or someone trained in that, then the person should be able to just go right through the system, through the planning, final, done. Then, at that point, you go after building permits, utility approvals, all that kind of stuff. Just list of 55 items. 55 items on a Friday afternoon, 5 days before this thing goes to 55 items. Got it done though.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other comments from the public? Any comments from staff? Can we work through a bit of the proposed code changes?
Yeah.
Can we give like just an easy top-down look
Sure.
at it so then we can
Yeah,
take
I'm gonna
the
move
next
on.
month and review it?
Yeah, I understand that this is very preliminary, you guys have probably not even read it.
And without Dirk, you know.
Well, I
You're
think,
gonna sit at
and we want Dirk to be involved.
Yeah.
Is that okay if I say that?
the, you're gonna sit at the table?
The firing squad.
Maybe I don't wanna be. Yeah, I was just easier to have a conversation, with y'all. Yeah, so the idea is to just kind of define and try to get to a place where you are already operating, that have historically operated, but also create clarity. And so one of the big things, and I know that Sharon and I haven't had a real conversation about this yet, but one of the things that is a big picture question is that, as Ron was just pointing out, is that this is really, a zoning certificate is tied to your site plan review. And there's more to a zoning certificate, like setbacks and everything, which are code requirements you guys have no authority to waive except for in certain circumstances, like subdivisions and PUDs. Actually, you don't even have subdivisions. But, so the idea is to just define the process better. And that's the intent of this revision, is to try to take the current code and bring it into reality and how we've been operating. And so, site plan is just a
You said
part
we
of
haven't been
the.
operating in reality?
I don't know.
We have been operating according to how our code is written.
Yeah.
We have not. And that's a fact.
In any event, okay, good, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So so there's a building permit, there's a zoning certificate which signs off on the site plan is one element of it, but it's also, just making sure it complies with general zoning code, which is issued by the planning director. And then there's the building permit, which is a separate process. I mean, it's kind of parallel in some ways, but it's kind of a two-step process. And the town code right now is written so that the zoning certificate is not issued until after the building is actually constructed, which makes absolutely no sense because it's built. Like, if it's not to zoning code, then you're kind of in a quandary. So I've changed it to the general process is like what every other jurisdiction mostly has, is a zoning certificate issued as a part of is like a sign off as a part of the process of beginning a building plus the building permit. And at the end, a certificate of occupancy saying everything's built to that level, because the current code is kind of written as though the zoning certificate is the certificate of occupancy. You're talking about the certificate of occupancy. So bringing the CFO concept into town, so that everybody knows once it's built that it's built to what it was designed to be built, and to code both a building perspective and a zoning perspective. And then also defines the process by which you all review it, which is that on big projects, they have to go through, it could be, like, it has to be, a preliminary concept can be done, but if it doesn't have certain elements, that it doesn't go to final. And that seems like something that we need to talk about, what you want, what level of design you all want to be able to see as final, it seems like there's a little disconnect, and I think that's a lot of the tension that we've been seeing.
You mean architecturally designed?
Well, there's a site plan review, like, design, so as you were saying, stormwater is a separate process, but it is a part of site plan. But if they're just general site plan of like, this is where the stormwater pond is, you don't necessarily need, or maybe you don't want to see it having where the stormwater, like, pipes are, the utility lines, all that stuff, it usually comes after, because you need to have the basic principles set before you start going beyond that.
Well, what's historically happened here, which I guess is archaic is what I'm hearing tonight, but we would get the site plan, okay? And we would look at the site plan and the concept of whether it met the code in terms of the lines and numbers and the setbacks and if it fit the footprint and all that. And that's what we governed here, that's what the planning commission did. And also recommending zoning and whether to annex something and all that sort of thing. But, we have no say so over stormwater. We always figured that what was drawn on that was done by a qualified professional. Now it has to stand scrutiny from the town's staff and the town code, obviously. But they would then, if we approved their site plan preliminarily approved it, then when they come back final, the stormwater has to pass the stormwater people.
So there's a lot of elements to stormwater, and I'm sure Sharon can share with you
Well,
what those
that's
elements
exactly,
are.
that's what I'm getting, that's what I'm getting at, is
Yeah.
we're too stupid to know that.
Yeah.
David Bowen and Fidel takes care of that. I mean, we're not in.
Well, no, actually, EA,
Or EA,
just
whatever,
will reduce stormwater.
I mean, we're not professional stormwater people, so we really, that's out of our, it's the same as the electric utilities. I'm not an electrical engineer, I can't tell you what that
So,
plan.
but I think what Sharon has shared with me, and I don't wanna speak for you, but that it can change, like, the site plan can
Right.
change after those things
Okay.
have been designed, and then whether or not those are things that you wanna see again,
Well,
or
if
not.
the site plan changes in terms of the setbacks or some of the, lot lines or whatever,
big picture things.
then it comes back to us.
If I
You
could
know.
speak for a second,
Please.
please. So, many of the jurisdictions that I represent have a multi-stage process. Your preliminary review handles the original thoughts to get the feedback from the planning commission with your basic layout. And then in between the preliminary site plan process and the final site plan process is where the applicant's consultant does the things like the stormwater design, the utility design, so that by the time it comes back for the final site plan review by the planning commission, all of those issues are already addressed. That there should not be any further changes to that site plan because due to outside agency comments, because they've already been addressed through the process of the construction improvement plans. So you would not need to be a stormwater professional or an electrical engineer, and you know that your consultants, the town's consultants who review those things, have already handled those things and they've all been addressed.
Well,
The issue, right, is there have been cases, maybe recently or in the far past, where we have done a final site plan review and something has changed in the site plan and that particular applicant, right, has felt like they didn't need to come back in front of the planning commission because it is not written in concrete in our code.
well, all you gotta do is deny them their building permit and they gotta come back with it and tell you you
Well,
ain't gonna
that's,
get your
the code
building.
doesn't actually say that, it says, once you get the final site, and actually it says, with respect to site plan review, the architecture is separate. Site plan review, you're just issuing recommendations, the code currently is you issue recommendations saying, we want to see, this building be in this location and that setbacks are okay, that's the current code, you issue recommendations. And then it's up to the professionals, like the planning director and the consultants, to confirm that they meet other code requirements.
Do we have professionals?
I think so.
Okay, well,
We're
that's
just-
good, I'm glad to hear we have professionals, but the thing is either way, whether you put the cart before the horse, I mean, you can say that if you don't meet, I mean, just like tonight's approval says that it's subject to all the department heads signing off and all the regulatory, conditions being met, and so it is, even though it's a final approval, it's subject to meeting the town code and to the regulatory commissions utilities and
Yeah,
stormwater.
but when it changes because of the other elements, the question is whether you want it to come back. Let's
But-
just say you.
Yeah, we should, I mean, if it involves changing the site plan, yes, it should come back, but you make it, you can put it in their documents or whatever, that if they don't, they're not gonna get their building permit. I don't care what the code says, but you don't have to issue them a building permit.
It doesn't actually, the code currently doesn't say you get notified at the apple. And so this code has a substantial change. So like if you're making a big change, like if you're moving something like one thing, a site goes 3 feet over because of some issue with the utility easement or something, is that something you wanna have come back?
Well, I think
Yeah.
our professionals that we have
Yeah.
can, I think administratively, they should have a little leeway to, if it's a minor thing, to be able to make the decision on their own if they think it's. you know,
Exactly, and that's in this.
Okay,
It,
but,
Yeah.
if there's a major one, then we can take another look at it, that's what we're here for. So we have a meeting every month for it, and so it doesn't have to be complicated, and again, the town holds the key, it's a building permit.
well, so from a legal perspective, that's where it gets a little murky, because like, yeah, we hold the building permit, but the building permit is not tied to your site plan review. So you say, you start off in the site plan and the building code requires them to change it, it doesn't say they have to come back and see it again. Because you've already issued your recommendations. That's currently the way it's written.
And
That's why I've been so.
And so what do you wanna say in there?
It's, there's a, and it's in there, it's like about substantial changes, material changes to the site plan. Like if they have to move the stormwater pond from this location to this location, but if it's minor, like they just have to make it bigger or smaller, that wouldn't be material. That would just be like something that the staff can sign off on. But just defining those things is important so that the staff knows when they need to come back and ask for your approval.
A simple sentence in the code saying that if you have any major site plan changes during your process of getting your approvals from all the rest of the agencies, then that has to go back before the planning commission.
And that's what it says, but it kind of, I added a little more definition about what that means. So there's some definition of what is minor and major, so that there's some, knowing when you wanna come back. Also knowing what level of design you want it to be when you're saying it's final still sounds like a kind of an outstanding question.
Well, we have no architectural guidelines, so we don't have a lot of.
That was another thing I added in there, that, added this concept that you all can come up with guidelines. It gives, the council can say, this committee can come up with some kind of style guidelines that
Don't we have
they've
to?
got.
Yeah, so
Commercial
we adopted
guidelines?
Worcester County's
Okay,
guidelines
Okay.
about a year or two ago.
okay,
I think we tweaked like 2 things out of the whole document.
I've reviewed those,
Yeah.
and, I would say that there are additional tweaks that would benefit the town to address.
It happened right about the same time Ryan came on board. And we all talked about it, or I had a conversation, I was like, well, let's push this back a year until Ryan's been here a while, and not overload her day one with, here's this gigantic design standard, figure this out tomorrow. So, yeah, we probably should in the next 6 to 12 months, start working on finalizing that, what we need to tweak on that. Cause you're right, I forgot all about that, we were gonna make changes to that.
Somebody came in just the other day and said, oh, it meets the Worcester County design guidelines.
yeah.
And there was something that we had said, oh, don't do it that way, and they were like, oh, well, no, it meets the Worcester.
Yeah.
County.
So another thing I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No worries.
Is that right now, there isn't any requirement for you to site plan review anything that doesn't involve a structure. So like Yaks and the Tracks is a classic example of someone using property that had no review. So I've added this concept that it's use, even if it doesn't involve permanent buildings. They should have a site plan review so that you also can sign off on it. It's just my idea, throwing it out there, it's something you should think about.
And when does that come up, on what?
I added this concept, like for instance, like Yaks and the Tracks, remember when they were over by the Berlin Brewer Company? And they were operating those bike things. Yeah, so there was no planned review of that, and so there was no parking, and it was total chaos, they didn't have a bathroom.
People are going to the bathroom like down the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Not great.
So like that concept, I added in there if it's a use that you wanna use even
What was the
temporarily,
zoning on
then
it?
it's
What
some
was the
level.
zoning on it?
It was, I looked at the zoning, I can't remember.
Was it a permitted use under the zoning?
don't remember.
If it's
been a
not a
while
permitted
since
use under zoning, they can't do it anyway.
They were like a lot on the railroad
Like a
territory. That's like how they were getting
Or
around
they
it.
could get variance.
Yeah, but they didn't, there was no review of that, they just started operating there, and then, so it can be tied to a business, like a business permit, because they have a business permit, you get a zoning certificate. And a site plan should be a part of that too, like, you have a site plan if you're gonna do something outside, it's not permanent.
Cause you had something with clearing in here too, right? Wasn't
Oh,
there?
yeah, I just thought that was another thing I added
Yeah.
about clearing, you know, there was some feedback about the Wawa, you know, everybody was upset about the clearing of those trees before they were even built. And so, you know, there's major corridors and the trees are part of our town, and that's just an idea. I mean, these are ideas that I was just throwing out, you know, just for feedback of whether you want on major corridors to have, not allow people to do clear cutting.
I would
Well, I
be
thought-
concerned about that one, just because of, it is not an actual change of use or a substantial change to the actual property, that by telling someone, you have to come in to planning commission for a site plan review and approval to cut your trees, I'd be concerned.
It's a large scale, like, it would not just be,
Right, I understand that, but, you know, even that, you know, just.
well, it's on the Worcester County Code, requires site plan review on that. So,
Well, I would ask you, I mean, and that's what, doesn't the county forestation regulations supersede Berlin? Don't they, if they're gonna clear land, they have to, doesn't the county come in anyway, whether it's in the town or not, and say, this is a specimen tree? I mean, I cleared land at our 113 one time, and, it was in the town, but the county came in and said, you can't cut that tree, it's a specimen tree, and you gotta buy out so many, you gotta mitigate out, and so it does not govern that?
If it's an individual tree, the county doesn't typically go into Berlin, but if it was something for a forest conservation easement, then yes, the county reviews that for the town.
And I believe that threshold is the 10,000 square feet.
The definition of a forest, 10,000 square feet.
Okay,
Or
'cause
it may be 20,000, I can't
I know
remember.
that when-
I think it's, I haven't looked at it for a while.
Yeah, but it's,
When they leased that lot over there on the corner of, West Street and Washington Street, they had to have forestation done on that lot. The parking, you know, where the town leased the parking lot, and the county did forestation.
That was associated with a subdivision of the big house in the corner. It was all one lot at one point in time, and they subdivided that lot, so that triggered forest conservation.
So these are just ideas, you know, that the committee to consider, and kind of basically redefine the role, or define the role that you're already operating under, and keep things that have been a problem.
What are town corridors?
Some corridors, there's actually already a concept in there, right now it's 113,
So within 500 feet.
Main, well, actually, I
Main
added
Street,
Main,
Broad Street,
Old
West.
Ocean City Boulevard, but I added Main and Broad, like the big streets.
The arteries,
That's
the
all.
arteries of the town.
That's all of, why don't we just say the town of Berlin then? Because 500 feet from the center of both is 1,000 feet on all Main Street. I mean, we're talking a quarter mile in all directions from all roads, like,
It's just,
that's,
yeah,
Hey.
yeah.
I would just,
Hey, can you create a GIS
I
one?
can, that's the thing. I mean, it's kind of a general comment, it's just, I don't like reading code. I don't know how to read half this stuff. I'm not versed in engineering or law degrees. I know how to build some geospatial models.
Yeah.
I was brought on this commission to talk about how do we make sure that commercial projects in this town fit some architectural design that, you know, from different aspects of residents in town, make sure it looks good. To Newt's point, I don't even think we should be saying subject to, because we're just saying, hey, I think this looks good. We have a body of people on this commission that say, we come from different walks of life. We think this will look good in town as residents. We'd like to speak for the town. If I don't say subject to and read off some list, is that gonna mean they can now weave through some?
Unfortunately, that's kind of
avenues,
like some of the
but-
outside people are coming in saying, you've already approved it, or like, saying it looks good, and then they don't have to do
Right.
anything further refinement. And so this is to make sure that the town has some control over.
Yeah, I think
What
just,
So
is
that
it
we
looking
don't,
like?
so that we don't have to say subject to.
right, that's what I'm saying, like moving forward, I think however this needs to be worded, I'm sure you
Yeah.
guys have nailed everything.
Yeah.
Just however this needs to be worded, so we don't, it's not like, oh, we missed to say 5 words and now they can go some crazy route.
Yeah, I actually added like a summary, there's a summary, it's like, in one of them about what these changes mean and why, the thought process, for you guys to think about. Yeah,
I like all the changes. I mean, I'd like to spend more time reading it. I don't think
so I think the plan right now.
I'm slow.
Yeah.
Fire at it.
What was that?
Fire at it.
Yeah.
Isn't the plan, we're just talking generally right now.
It's all
And then we're gonna come back and have a working session in August to really dig into this. I know there's a lot in there, and this is just a lot of ideas being thrown out there. I'm not saying they're right, I'm just throwing ideas out there.
Explain to us,
Yeah.
or me anyway.
Yeah.
The zoning certificate comes into play at what point?
So right now, it's not issued until the building's built, according to town code, the way it's written. So
The zoning, I mean, it has to meet the zoning that it's in, right?
it should be, if the zoning certificate should say, you should have zoning sign off before you start building anything. Because otherwise you build it, and let's say you're too close to the property line, you're not in compliance, and so that's a whole separate
Well,
problem.
that's governed under site plan and make sure setbacks are right when they propose the building, right?
Yes, exactly, and so it needs to be issued before they start doing anything. But right now, it reads as though you issued at the end, which is more of a certificate of occupancy. So I added this concept of a certificate of occupancy. So once it's built, someone goes out and inspects it and say, yeah, it was built to the building code and to the site plan. To make it make sense. Eric, you can have thoughts, but.
No, I mean, to layer back onto the gentleman in the audience's comment, that's, his statement is weird to me because that's the process that most, even residential, in residential projects in certain municipalities that you have to go through, hitting all those steps beforehand, and we're talking about making sure all of those are hit. One, so that we don't have to review them, and two, so that they're all hit before the building is built, which is super logical.
Yeah, so that you guys all think of yourself as more of like an advisory body speaking for the public, not a signing off on the technical aspects of it, because that's not your role. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think Sharon, everybody's briefly brought it up, but the concept of, and I just did a quick read through last week, so I don't recall exactly how you wrote this, but like, what we're looking at today for this particular project as an example is almost too complex for this body to look at and put through these drawings and make, an evaluation of it, like, if that's what comes to us as for final site plan approval, but we've already seen maybe concept, and to just speak with an architectural term, a design development phase of that site plan, where maybe at that point they're saying, hopefully in what was presented here, nothing is gonna move, and then at that phase, we're looking at it without all the stormwater stuff, all the details of all the stormwater stuff layered on, because that makes it too hard for us to,
I would
read
submit,
it.
I would submit to you that our professionals are gonna review that before we ever get it, so that we know that our professionals have reviewed it and says it meets the code, the setbacks,
Well, so the
everything.
problem is, the
That's why we get staff recommendations when we come in here to say that, okay, this meets what I reviewed. I'm the planning director and it meets what I reviewed and it is conforms to the code. Then we can tweak it to where we need it or want it or ask questions or make the changes that's what that's what's always
I
been
think
done
the
before.
tension is that when they come, they wanna have a big picture, look at it, like, you like the way it is laid out, and they wanna have that the buildings are set to this location, and the entrances or whatever, and then all the details come later, and so that's where the tension is that, is that the preliminary thing, where you say, oh, it looks good in these locations, and you wanna come back at the end when everything's designed fully, or do you just wanna sign off on the big picture things?
Well, again, I would submit to you that if we get these site plans for preliminary review that the builder wants to do and his professional has done it, then we look at it and we beat it up a little bit to our knowledge of what we do and recommend changes or tweaks. And then we say, okay, you got a preliminary review. Then Sharon even said, I think, that it goes then, before what we're talking about, it went to the planning director and his staff, and they looked at it, and they, beat it around, and then it came for final site plan review, and we said, okay, if it meets the, town code on setbacks and all the, site plan things that need to be done, then we would approve it for final, subject to all department heads, stormwater, subject to all other regulatory agencies that need to sign off on it before they can get a building permit, or what you're saying?
I think, like, Sharon, maybe you can explain why that is such a confusing thing for staff.
Okay, so there is nothing in your code that mandates all of your department heads and the outside agencies having even seen it before it comes to you for final site plan approval. There's nothing in your code. As of right now, your code specifically states it is subject to the process and procedures of the planning department, which are not defined in your code. So that when you have, savvy land use attorneys, come in who know the code and are adhering to the strict letter of the code. So you're seeing a horizontal picture of a property development, and that is all you're seeing. That is all the town staff is seeing. There's no addressing, well, where are your utility connections? Because if you don't have utility connections, you don't have a viable development. I would guess that as the planning commission, you would want to know that this is a viable development by those things.
When you say utility connections, when the property that would be before us wouldn't be before us if the town council had not annexed it into the town. Now, upon that annexation, I would think that the property would have been looked at by the town, because the staff does also make a recommendation of zoning that the town can serve that and serve that, and that utilities are available for that property, if need be, and if the developer has to pay to run them to them or to hook them up.
If they're not available, it's the layout of them. Right, you're correct. They have determined as part of the annexation process, if a property is annexed, that the town can serve that with utilities. But the exact details of how it is being served are not necessarily established at that time.
Yeah, but that has nothing, again, I'm gonna say that has nothing to do with us. Now, if we get preliminary review on the lines and the numbers and the setbacks, we get preliminary review, then it can go to staff to figure all that out. The electric department should figure that out.
You're correct. It should go to staff, and where staff designates, outside consultants to establish those things. Your code does not state that it has to go through that procedure.
Our code, I don't know how can anything be built if it doesn't go through that procedure? And everything has, to my knowledge, nobody
It
built.
does go to that. We're talking solely about your role in this.
We don't need to go, because we're not engineers, we're not stormwater people, we're not, electrical engineers. That's why we do a preliminary and a final review, so that then the town takes it and runs with it, and whatever they need, and they should not be issuing a building permit or a zoning permit until all regulations and town department heads sign off on.
Your code does not mandate a separate preliminary and final review.
We're providing.
We can change that. I mean, that's easy.
So there's a concept of preliminary, there's, for big projects, yes, there's a, concept of preliminary that it's presumed to be if it doesn't meet certain requirements. If it's a minor thing, like a minor project, it's not the complexity of like the Parcel 57 CDP project, that it's a one review thing.
Okay, so one of the
Yeah.
modifications we're making is to provide for preliminary review in the code.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Yes, and then it's
I was
not
just trying to read this,
presumed to
but I
be.
can't catch up.
Oh, I know there's a lot in there. I mean, and the summary starting with the summary might help.
Okay, but the plan
Yeah.
is to have a preliminary review on a project that requires preliminary review.
It
Is that
won't
right?
be designated as final if it doesn't have the elements that we're all talking about. It will not be put on as final. Unless it has those things. It can be concept or preliminary at that stage that you have, like, how have you been doing?
A
Like,
complex project will have preliminary review.
yes.
How are we defining complex
There's
or
like,
small?
I'm trying to find it. So there's other reviews that Matt and I have talked about, like, changes on the exterior. I know I'm digressing to a different topic, but like, the changes, like if someone moves their HVAC system or fence and on a commercial property, that is a smaller.
We don't have anything to do with that.
Well, I think that there was a desire to talk about that.
Can I say,
I
you
think the
know,
building inspector, the new building inspector can have to make those.
No, so
decisions.
the problem was that we were designing a plan that looked like this. This developer, a year later, could say, screw it, I'm moving the fence 32 feet this way and the HVAC equipment out here. So we approved a site plan approval, and then a year later, they could just change it.
Again, that's why we need these inspectors, as I always had said, we
But-
need a building inspector.
But it
To
would be,
take that
but
site plan
the-
out there, before they get a certificate of occupancy, and look at it and say that it met what this.
So we get the certificate of occupancy, then they change it,
Well,
another permit that doesn't, the code doesn't require them to come back.
Let's use the
Yeah.
project we all know that we're talking about as an example. Were those mechanical units code and zoning compliant in where they were located?
yeah, it would.
So she doesn't have, it's not on her to make the judgment that they were inappropriately located. If it had come back before us, then we would have said that that's not an appropriate location for those based off of this collective body's judgment of the location of those being facing the street. But otherwise, they were code compliant. So if they just go to the planning department's office, then they're just gonna say, okay, yeah, these are code compliant and fine, because in some of our minds, it's a major revision to the site plan and how it affects the streetscape.
We're just trying to give them a tool if it comes up. It might not even be important, it might not come to us, but we had no rights. And, but once again, they fenced it in, it looks great now, very happy about it.
so one of the things has been, you know, determining what would need to come back to the commission and what could be handled by the planning department. What specific triggers would, you know, require it to come back to you? And what you would be comfortable with the planning department handling as a minor change, you know, a sidewalk that moves a couple of feet. That would be something that could be handled administratively. To the bit about the HVAC units, if the HVAC unit was on top of the building and now all of a sudden they wanna move it to ground level, that is a definite change as far as the visual aspect as to where it's located and potential screening.
Another example is what's going on at Forgotten 50. There's no requirement that they came and asked you, can we build this structure off of Forgotten 50?
And then I think if they have to go around behind the property.
Then none of that is like required to come back to you because it's not a new project.
So have we addressed those issues?
Yeah, so
I
that's
see.
a substantial change in the.
Yes, I see you have like this 108,
Well, let me ask you this,
well, 10884, and then you go into like denial revocation of certificate of occupancy. So so I can understand the process moving forward. I get the town code doesn't address these things today. I kind of want to stop talking about that because we're beating that into the bush.
Yeah.
So moving forward, this person gets site approval,
Yeah.
site plan approval, they get everything built, they move in, they get their CO. A year later, they move their HVAC, they change their lighting,
They add a patio.
they add whatever.
Yeah.
That is a revocation of their CO. They have to come back to us with a new site plan.
It's not a revocation, before they can get a building permit, they have to get a new certificate of zoning certificate.
well,
It's not really tied
let's
to
go
building
back,
permit.
let's go back to Forgotten 50.
Yeah.
So that they build an outside structure for outside dining, a
Yeah.
glorified pergola, or whatever the
Yeah.
thing is. But anyway, I mean, that, once a town official or a building inspector, somebody saw that going up, they should have to get a permit to add to
They
that.
do get a permit, but it doesn't require it to come back to you guys.
They did get a building permit, they just did not come back for planning commission approval.
But if they added a patio for additional dining, that's now additional seats, which requires additional parking, which requires site plan and planning commission.
So the discussion really is, what do you want it to trigger so that they have to come back or not? basically?
Well, I mean, I think that you as a professional could make a judgment on how major or minor something is and recommend that they have to come back and tell them.
But I might think it's minor, and you might think it's major.
That's the problem, the judgment calls, you know.
Well, there could be, I mean,
Yeah,
it could be based on, it could be, if it affects parking or there could be a square footage limit. There could be some things that trigger it. I mean, you could.
Yeah.
So you have proposed.
Yeah, like in gross area, 10%, 10% gross area increase, height increase, density increase.
Okay, so you
like,
propose a
material
longer.
changes in traffic, ingress egress, hypersection, reduction in, open space, deviation, prior conditions.
So remember what you need, what you tell us, we need your homework, kiddo.
Yes.
And tell you what we like, so we can, but you know, we can't make the code change on it. You
So what-
want us to recommend to the council that we.
Yes, so the idea is to get your feedback so we can incorporate it, and then it goes to the council for one, it has to go through 2 reviews from. But they wanna know that you guys are,
Or Gloria
incorporating
Sharon,
your
or
ideas
Gloria
into
Sharon
it.
can appear before them when there
But-
are necessary changes.
yeah, another concept I added in there is like how much design of signs you wanna have review of. I know historic designs, is, historic signs are being reviewed, but there's lots to talk about signs, and there was
No, we don't wanna get too Nazi-istic around here, this is Berlin, you know.
Can I put a question to my fellow commissioners? The one thing this doesn't address, this is, huh? What?
That's the lawn
That's
commissioner.
your word.
This addresses commercial and multi-family.
I actually added multifamily, that was just an idea, like multifamily townhouses are in particular,
Yeah,
and like
so-
site plan review, well, actually, you already have some review that I don't know if it's happening, because when I went and looked at the code, you are supposed to be approving the open space and plan for any multifamily
Yeah.
development, and I'm not sure that that's coming back to you guys.
Yeah, I'm fine,
Yeah.
I like the inclusion of multifamily.
Yeah.
I know the town is still working through ADU policies. Do we include the ADUs in this?
I didn't put an ADU in there because that's a whole nother thing, and Newt's gonna just go off on his little.
I know, some people,
like
some
a
people,
spaceship and-
some people are gonna put, some people are gonna rent out their
I
garages.
saw that garage, you can go to back here.
Hey, you got a big garage too, man.
I see what you got. It's attached to the house, though.
It's true,
Um,
yeah, I didn't address ADUs in there because it's a hot topic.
But I
But I
think,
didn't know how to-
but I think
We should talk
because,
about them, maybe they shouldn't come before us, but we should be part of the.
Yeah, definition, and that's
And where are we
something,
at with that?
so that, I don't know, and actually that's something
Yeah.
that is on the top of my list of things that I really wanna start making sure that we push this through, because we are supposed to have rules by October first.
No problem.
I think,
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
propose that we include it, just because, let's say ADUs become a thing, and we're saying, yeah, we get to approve them, whatever the constraints of that look like.
okay.
Yes, I built a very large garage on my property, I made sure it looked good.
Of course
I
you
didn't
did.
just put,
Of course you did.
I didn't just put a pole barn on my property, it's got nice facade, it's got nice doors
And you have a main house in front of it?
to the side. It's,
Yeah, I'm just being
The fact that,
I'm just saying, like, if we don't have, if I had to put my grandma in my house, don't you wanna make sure I have the right parking? If you're saying I have to come to us to clear 10,000 square feet of forest, but I'm gonna get that to build a huge garage and to throw someone in there, don't we wanna have the right to say
I'm not
it
saying,
should look a
I just
certain way?
didn't,
well, there was, I was part of it, there was an EDU meeting, the first one that
Yeah,
mayor,
yeah,
that the mayor called, and we were, I don't, you read it?
yeah, it's in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out, you know, how much crap you can jam into some of the backyard. We're trying to, you know, we were trying to struggle with how you're gonna get the sewer and water, does it have to be separate connected? I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
questions, you know, and not to mention that does the state of Maryland have the right to rezone or every R2 property in every town in the state of Maryland, so, I mean, there is that question, you know, but.
Yeah, I mean, I just,
Uh,
this is somewhat related, but like I did a big housing study for the city of Cambridge at my old job. There was always this concept that like Section 8 housing is really bad housing, right? Section 8, actually, you have to hit certain standards to hit Section 8. We get in there, people pride on themselves not being Section 8. They're 60% below standard of Section 8. My point is, if you don't allow the ADU, if you don't have structure behind that, there's nothing preventing me from building a 4-car garage, putting 2 bathrooms in it, and moving someone in, as long as I don't have a microwave. That's how Dave Engelhardt always said.
Well,
You can't cook food in there, it's not.
the town of Berlin before this ADU stuff came in, you couldn't have sleeping quarters separate from the house. But you could have families sleep in, you couldn't have a kitchen, okay? And you couldn't have cooking facilities, so, but you could do it if it was attached to the house. So you could have a full apartment if it was connected to the house. Now, the ADU thing, again, like you were at that meeting, you were struggling with the setbacks that could be allowed, or, you know, how much is it gonna affect the neighbor? You can't be right up against the next neighbor who doesn't want an ADU, or a bunch of Hottentots running around the backyard next to them while they're sitting on the patio trying to have their wine of an evening. So,
Well, you can't prevent me from having 12 kids and doing the same thing in my house, right? It's
Right,
so different.
but you paid for that, to do that, and, you know, it's that's under the R2 zoning. But you
Okay,
did-
my wife-
But why are my neighbors allowed to suddenly change, and I bought my R2 property with the quiet enjoyment, with the expectation of the quiet enjoyment of what R2 zoning means, and it doesn't mean, dwelling next to me where there's another bunch of people gonna run around and there's barely room for all of them on the lot. Luckily, my church is a good neighbor, so that's got a good neighbor there. I managed to buy most of the things that are around me to keep so I can avoid that crap. But anyway,
But I mean, right now, ADU isn't us, like, that's a whole October battle.
Yeah.
And in it, you know, the conversations were, is it family only? Like,
Yeah.
all those different aspects that Berlin can incorporate to limit, can't remove it 100%, but limit the annoyances when you're trying to comply with that porch.
Yeah, I think, so my point, no, I know the ADU's a future conversation. If we're making code changes, how often are we doing this? Once every 10 years?
This is a big
Like-
lift, so we need to, and
Right,
we need
so,
to make
so
sure
we
that
need
it's
to make
done
sure
the
that
right
the
way.
language is there, so we don't push this through in September, something happens to the ADUs in October, and then.
Well,
oh,
we could
shoot,
also,
we-
and then October could refer back to.
well,
that.
we also
But-
have to scrutinize the world according, inland, so there is that, so we gotta be.
The world
we-
Oh,
You know, sees the altar, we gotta scrutinize it and see what happens if it fits our little town.
So,
Yeah.
one thing, you know, that with the whole site plan review, and I know we've talked about the ability for the plan director to administratively approve certain things, but they all seem to be if they are site plan revisions. What about a minor site plan that is not a revision? Say somebody wants to come in and they wanna put up a little, say farmer's cart. You know,
That's
which
it,
is
well, that's,
technically
no,
a
I put in
produce-
there,
produce
that's actually,
stand.
I already put that in there in the concept of a use that doesn't include permanent structures.
Right, but say it is a permanent say there is a permanent structure that is associated with it, but it's still a minor.
There's also a minor concept
So,
there too.
just wanna make sure that we clearly define that, because, I don't know if the planning commission wants to see something of somebody wants to put up a produce stand that's basically a shed, but it needs a business permit because it's a produce stand.
Is it on a residential piece of property?
Well, we have regulations, good, I think, to, govern in-home businesses or residential property businesses that, right?
An occupation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's there already.
But what if there's no home there?
To a certain extent. Well, what if there's no home there, I mean, I don't know what your R2 regulation is, what's allowed there and what's not, but you can't run a business in an R2 district. You
Just
can't.
some things to think about though.
I understand, I what you're telling, but we already have some stop gaps in place that we don't wanna, a bunch of redundancy, but we do have regulations to stop some of these things.
I have a question for, you mentioned that staff as a whole, like town and then utilities and all that, don't typically see the plans until they get to the building permit stage. Is there any sort of like technical review committee before they come to us?
So, and Ryan, pardon me if I, overstep. So with plans that come in, for instance, with Heron Park, they did go to, the utility review and the stormwater review, because before they could come to the planning commission, they at least had to have the concept approval. But there were a significant number of things that, until we got here tonight and, Mr. Parker said that they had addressed all of the comments that had been issued, staff was very unclear as to whether any of those had been addressed, and some of those were some major things. But I don't know what outside agencies have seen. I don't know if the fire marshal has seen that. The staff doesn't know that because staff is not the one submitting to the fire marshal. That's something we'll
Yeah,
discuss.
so that's
because-
actually another concept, that any site plan that comes, that's a major site plan needs to be reviewed by the fire, both the local and, what's the other one? the two fire, so that they get the comments back, so, because that's becoming a real problem with, especially with the width of roads and
We've
things
done
like
it
that.
before, we've had to do that
Yeah,
before.
that's a
But
requirement.
now it's codified, it's gonna be codified, because now it's not required now.
But it's
Right?
not the applicant's it's the applicant's responsibility to submit that. It is not the town's responsibility. It is on the applicant to submit to the fire marshal and provide any comments or an approval letter to the
That's not
town.
when it's preliminary, it's that when it's
Correct.
received, that it's sent to them, but yes, we can make it so that they have to get the code.
That is the standard, I will
Okay,
say,
okay.
and that is the industry standard, that it is the applicant's responsibility to
Well,
submit.
some people, I'd rather see the town deal with it, being on their checklist so that we make sure it's done.
Well, it is on the checklist before they can get approvals, before they can get their building permit and everything, but it is a recommendation that the local fire department gets to see it. Each fire department has different equipment.
Sure.
To make sure that they are on board with what
Yeah.
they can handle.
Early in the process.
Yes.
Before things are more set in
Well, you have to have
stone.
certain turn radiuses and cul-de-sacs.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
But essentially, like, we could be saying, we're looking at these plans, we don't know if the fire marshal approved yet, and the fire marshal could come in and say, we need these lanes to be 10 feet wider and all the rest.
Exactly.
And that's what,
Exactly.
that's,
So we're-
that's,
that's like
Exactly.
an early stage
Right.
like thing, and it's a condition of getting, any reviews, concept or whatever, like, it has to come to them first and get their comments. And then those are submitted to you guys, so you know what they said. As a part
we
of
just
the-
wanna bring you a code compliant project, so that we know nothing is changing.
Nothing major is
So they should be
changing.
able to roll from here right into a building permit essentially, with the layout. Yeah.
Into their construction improvement
Makes sense.
plans, finishing up and to that building permit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think generally for these complex projects, 3 times in front of us, based off of everything that we're saying, makes sense. A preliminary concept review, which I personally think should be required, because, like our previous meeting, all the applicants that came with just a concept site plan with a surveyor, we were able to have a productive conversation about a ton of things before they even got the ball going on it. The second review being some form of developed version of that concept, that they may have started concept stormwater review and some of those aspects, but, is developed enough where we can say, hey, if everything works out from all the other parties that need to look at this, and this is what you're presenting, then by the time this comes back to us for final site plan approval, then you basically will have our recommendation of approval at this point. And then the third being final site plan approval, which, unless anything has changed from that previous meeting to the final approval, we've already kind of looked at, everything already. And they're just telling us that they have, everything that they previously presented, they have now developed all of the details, utility connections, parking, turning radiuses, everything like that we've previously looked at, and that it already has approval. So that's the only way that.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
So we need to.
I agree,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I've been listening to you all for a year, trying to try to make sure that the concepts and the issues that we've seen come forward are somewhat addressed. I'm not saying it's perfect, just,
Well, I just want, that's the
Yeah.
concept,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
concept we're
Yeah.
looking at.
As long as we're talking about code, can I address one thing?
Sure.
Kind of personal. On the zoning application,
yeah,
there's a line there that says you have to declare your intended use.
yeah.
Well, the zoning application specifies any zone that you want to come into, B2, B3, Z, or whatever. So it should be that you don't have to specify use, because you might not know if you're gonna rent a property, who your tenant might be. It should say that you have to, it's everything that B2, if that's what you're asking for, is annexed in, is allowed under B2.
Well, you're talking about annexations, or you're talking about this?
Right now, I'm talking about annexation as part of the code, isn't it?
I think that goes to whether the EDUs are gonna be sufficient.
I'm not worried about that. That's another thing.
We
What
can
I'm
talk
saying,
about this, and, yeah,
all I'm saying is
Yeah.
that when somebody annexes in under certain zoning, they should, their intended use is anything that the zoning that they're asking for allows. So that's the answer to that line. Anything they put in that line would probably be a lot, because they might change, and that shouldn't affect them, because whatever it is, it's allowed under what they're coming in at.
So I want just a comment regarding that. I have seen an annexation come in without an intended use in a different jurisdiction. with a specific zoning that they had asked for. And when they actually came in to develop the project, it was something that was absolutely inappropriate for the area. And it was allowed under that zoning that they got, and and that was a very big eye-opener for the particular municipality who went, wow.
Right, but still, you cannot, just because you don't think it's inappropriate, if it's allowed under the zoning, they're trying to come in and the town annexes this, if it's allowed, it's allowed. Now,
Just look at the zoning.
that's what, you know,
Right,
you need
so-
to look at your zoning thing and what it allows. If you think there's something prohibited in there, you need to get it out now before that issue arises.
We have already had some of those without annexations with existing piece of property that I already looked at.
Just something for you to chew on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, guys?
Thank you for the feedback, guys.
What's the plan to come back with notes on this?
So the plan, I think the idea, Matt, right, is we're gonna have a working group.
What's your timeline for this,
I think it's August.
Tomorrow.
Like
Don't
a,
procrastinate, like, it's,
August 10th.
somewhere about a month.
I think it's August 10th.
You have to go to the days, about 30 days.
Is that enough time?
Yeah, we'll make it work. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
I think you should read that.